So our next topic in interactions and ecosystems is topic 6, which is succession and change in ecosystems. So we'll talk about succession first. When we talk about succession, this is the gradual process by which some species replace other species in an ecosystem. And this process can take hundreds and even thousands of years. So a species is called pioneer species. This is the first species that arrives. So sometimes the abiotic conditions can be very, very harsh. And it's these pioneer species that will be able to find a way to live there. So basically, they pave the way for populations of other species to enter the community and establish themselves. And then over time, many of those pioneer species may get replaced by the new arrivals. But it's very important, these species, these are key species, these pioneer species, because they enter the ecosystem first. All right, so we'll talk about primary succession first. So primary succession is the gradual growth of organisms in an area that was previously bare, such as rock. So nothing was able to grow there. There was no life there before. So it occurs in areas where no life exists due to an absence of soil. So for example, volcanic islands, lava flows, rocks that are left behind by retreating glaciers. So what happens is these pioneer species such as lichen are able to grow in rocky areas, and they have chemicals in their tissues that can slowly etch away the rock, and that will create tiny depressions in the rock where soil and seeds from other plants can eventually start growing. And then the soil will slowly become more fertile. So as the soil becomes more fertile, then mosses, fungi, grasses will appear. Soon after, those grassy areas may get replaced by trees with shallow roots, and then as more soil builds up, the larger trees become established. So here we just have some pictures showing lichen on rock. So this diagram here is showing primary succession. So we have bare rock, and then we have lichen appear, which can start etching away the rock, and soil will start to form. Then we would have small annual plants and lichen. Then we would have grasses and perennials. Then we would have grasses, shrubs, and then some trees. And then we have this called a climax community. A climax community, it's a stable community. There's a lot of diversity there. There's a diverse number of species, and it's not easily now replaced by other communities. And this climax community can now exist for many, many years. All right, but notice here, this whole process took hundreds of years. All right, just gonna pause here and watch a couple of these videos. Actually, we will finish talking about secondary succession and then we'll watch the videos. So secondary succession, this occurs when a community has been destroyed or disturbed by a natural occurrence or by human activities. So for example, if there was a forest fire, regeneration of a burned forest, a farmer's field, a vacant lot in the city, or a newly forested area. This is different from primary succession because these habitats, they already had life existing there before. So for example, these are some species here. Wildflowers, they can grow best in strong sunlight. Blueberry bushes, they're adapted to grow in soil containing ash. Cones from jack pine and lodgepole trees, they lie closed for years, and then they will heat up from a fire, like a forest fire, and that forest fire will pop them open and release the seeds. So they're actually adapted to open up from a forest fire. So here in this diagram, we can see secondary succession. So this would be like a climax community. It would be a stable community existing here for hundreds of years. And then a forest fire, everything is down to like ash, and then we would have these species appearing here. And eventually we will get back to this climax community.
In this video, I'd like to talk about pioneer species and primary succession. In 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted, and dust was lifted 15 miles in the atmosphere and drifted over 11 states. The area around the volcano was destroyed and lifeless. However, over time, if you look closely on the exposed rock, you would begin to find bacteria, some fungus spores, and possibly even pollen. A new community of life would begin to grow on this exposed rock. This process of establishing a community on an area like rock that does not have soil is called primary succession. Before most plants can grow, they need soil. But how is this soil created? Many times lichens and moss will begin to grow on the rock. Because they are the first living things to appear and grow, they are called the pioneer species. A lichen is an interesting individual and is a combination of algae or bacteria that lives among fungi. Lichen can grow on almost any surface and does not need soil to grow. Moss is a non-vascular plant that can grow also on almost any area and does not need soil. Therefore, it can grow on the rocks much like the lichen. Because lichen and fungi release acids, they begin to break down rocks. As the pioneer species begin to die and leave behind organic material, it combines with this rock sediment and soil slowly begins to appear. As the soil begins to appear, small weedy plants like ferns may begin to grow. As these plants grow, other individuals like insects and fungi will appear, and as they die, more soil is produced. All of this growth is the result of the first pioneer species, which are the first individuals to grow on places like rocks that do not have any soil. Thanks for watching, and Moo Moo Math uploads a new math and science video.
Are being created, fires burn in forests, volcanoes explode and destroy areas. Nothing remains the same, and habitats are constantly changing. Ecological succession is a process by which an ecological community undergoes changes following a disturbance or the initial colonization of a new habitat. For example, the islands of Hawaii were formed from volcanic activity. From their fiery start, over time they became tropical islands. There are two main types of succession: primary and secondary. Primary succession occurs in new areas that have little or no soil. In other words, the area has been almost completely destroyed or is newly formed. For example, new islands can be created from lava flows. The lava creates a new land without soil. A volcano may destroy a very large area. This would be an example of primary succession. Over time, dirt is formed, plants begin to grow, and a forest or a grassland may return. The first species that colonized this new land is called the pioneer species. Lichen and moss are many times pioneer species. Secondary succession occurs when an existing ecosystem has been destroyed or disturbed. They are more minor in magnitude compared to a primary succession. For example, a forest fire may destroy a large area of trees and plants, or flooding can destroy an area. In this before and after picture, the fire destroys plants, but the soil remains. 2 years later, the forest has grown back. Here is how secondary succession may occur. Fire destroys plant growth. The fire leaves behind empty but not destroyed soil. Grasses and other plants grow back first. Small bushes and trees began to colonize the area. Next, fast-growing evergreen trees developed to their fullest, while shade-tolerant trees developed underneath. Eventually, larger deciduous trees will grow over them, and the ecosystem is similar but different from where it began. These disturbances can actually be healthy for an area over time because they can lead to increased biodiversity. Controlled burns are practiced by many park services. The fires help manage weeds and other growth and helps to reduce the risk of wildfires, but it can also help destroy nutrients and lead to more desirable plant growth in the future. If you'd like to know more about succession, this playlist will help. And as always, thanks for watching, and Moo Moo Math uploads a new math or science video every day. Please subscribe and share.
All right, so next we're going to talk about changes that are caused by human activities. So human technologies such as forestry, agriculture, spread of urban areas and highways and parking lots and so on. These are all changes that are caused by human activities. Now, some species are able to adapt better than others. So for one example here is the brown-headed cowbirds. So forested land was cleared to grow crops, and this brown-headed cowbird can easily adapt to change, so it was able to spread into areas that have been altered. And this cowbird, what it does, it lays its eggs in the nests of other bird species, such as warblers and vireos. And these cowbirds, the chicks of these cowbirds are very large, they're very loud, and they demand food. So these chicks, they are also able to grow very quickly. They squeeze out the warbler and vireo chicks out of the nest, and therefore the warblers and vireos do not reproduce successfully. And these brown-headed cowbirds have spread quickly across Canada because they were so better at adapting than those other species of birds. So we'll watch a couple of these videos on the brown-headed cowbirds.